río pasó, ay Carmela, ay Carmela. Una noche el río pasó, ay Carmela, ay. Spain during the 1930s was a pretty big mess and switched through many different political leaders almost as fast as Henry VIII goes through his wives. This entered Spain into a time of severe economic and social hardships thanks to the Great Depression and was the first tipping point for the way to democracy in Spain today. Spain was much less industrialized than other nations and had not undergone an industrial revolution to the extent that countries such as Britain and Germany had. As a result, most Spaniards worked in agriculture and farming, making up 50% of working class at the time. Peasants working the land were paid starvation wages by the landowners. These wages are when workers are paid just enough for their work but not enough to afford food. This meant the poverty and malnutrition were widespread as many couldn't afford much of the inflated food pricing. Low pay also meant that there was not enough demand for the consumer economy, leading to more jobs being lost and companies eventually shutting down. These failed economic policies of Marco Primo de Rivera, more like pasta primavera, left the new government with a huge loss of money. This made it very hard to finance a vital state investment, and industrial production was hit especially hard, causing a rise in unemployment.
Lower classes were arguably the worst affected by the Depression, as most lost their homes and farms. On top of this, to pay for the damages the Depression had caused Spain, this class of farmers were heavily taxed, an amount which most would never be able to pay. The emerging middle class would be a close second. After the stock market crashed, thousands lost all their money and employment rates skyrocketed. Though they were still better off than the farmers, most could not afford most everyday items. Looking at how the upper classes of Spain were affected, you have to look at both sides. While most were fine because they had a lot of money to spare, they had to give up their lavish lifestyle because of the Depression. The other half lost it all and became part of the lower class, as they had no longer had a home or a job to provide stability. While the people of Germany and Italy were suffering from the Depression, fascism took hold. Both Mussolini and Hitler promised to end their corruption in their countries while also vowing to restore the great glory their nations once was. While they captivated citizens and turned governments from republics to dictatorships, this growing ideology began to spread to Spain. Two parties, the far-left nationalists led by Francisco Franco, I hate that kid, and the far-right Republicans led by Manuel Azaña, began to rise and support opposition of the fascist agenda. On July 18, 1936, troops under the leadership of General Francisco Franco began an uprising against General Marco Primo de Rivera and Republican government officials. But how did these nationalists and Republicans get to the point of a full-on civil war? After the Depression hit Spain hard, elections were held to determine a new leader as Alfonso had abdicated the throne. Republicans ended up winning all the major elections, turning Spain into a democracy instead of a monarchy. The Republic, however, faced a number of problems. The government tried to attack those it deemed as having too many privileges in society, but by doing this, angered all those in society that had the potential to fight back: the military, industrialists, landowners, and the Roman Catholic Church. These four powerful bodies were unwilling to support the Republican government in Madrid, and the Republic was losing the support of those they needed the most, the working class. Years later, as Azaña was elected governor, Spain began to dissolve into fighting and protests. Spain was running off the rails, and the people felt unsafe. So, who did they turn to? Of course, the military. As General Franco assumed control of the entire military that had taken over the Spanish Morocco, the Republicans were fighting for survival as he squashed all opposition. With the help from strong powers of Italy and Germany on the nationalist side, and the Soviet Union supporting the Republicans, the Spanish Civil War evolved into a proxy war between the fascists and the USSR. The nationalists took victory with Germany's superior weaponry and took power over Spain, ending the war in 1939, as General Francisco Franco became the new dictator.
No!
This dictatorship lasted for nearly 40 years until the hard rule of Franco came to an end in 1975, as not even his own heart could stand to be around him, and he died of heart failure. On 15, 1977 was a huge turning point in democratic history as the Spanish polls were open for the first time since 1936 before the Civil War. Looks like the people of Spain are leaving Franco's dictatorial rule just like his hairline. The four main parties were the Unions of the Democratic Century, the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, the Communist Party of Spain, and the People's Alliance. A decree issued by acting Prime Minister Adolfo Suarez had established a proportional representation system. A total of 350 seats were up for grab. For the Senate, there was to be a majority electoral system with 207 seats, of which up to 41 could be designated by the king. Though transitioning from a dictatorship, Spain still wanted to keep some aspects of monarchy in their government while still having equal say. Turnout for this all-important election was 78.8% and would probably have been higher had there not still been fears about repercussion if it was discovered which way people had voted. The threatening shadow of the Franco dictatorship still hung over much of the population. Even so, that was still the second highest turnout in any general election in Spain since. When the results came in, Adolfo Suarez' UCD party had won the highest number of seats, 165 of the 350, and he became Spain's first democratically elected prime minister after the dictatorship. The second place party was PSOE, led by the young Philip González with 118 seats, and third was the PCE, the Spanish Communist Party, with 20 seats.
The People's Alliance, led by former Franco Minister Manuel Fraga, only won 16 seats, as Spain definitively turned its back on its decades of repression. However, despite getting out of the constricting rule of Francisco Franco, Spain still had a long way to go. For example, after the 1977 election, there were only 21 female MPs. Now there are 137. A new Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez Castellon, has appointed 11 women and 6 men to his cabinet. After democracy was re-established, there were radical changes to everyday life in Spain. Society became more open and free. Women were given back rights which had been taken from them by Franco, and Spain began a transition period towards the modern country it is today. Now, because of the elections brought about in 1977, Spain is run by a constitutional monarchy and is no longer under the lingering rule of a fascist dictator with a receding hairline. Because as some of you may know, King Felipe has a magnificent hair. So, without Spain going through a little brotherly fight to figure out who would be on top and rule, we would not have the democratic state there today, and the accomplishments that the Spanish government has done under this rule, such as joining NATO and helping with overseas affairs, along with being a huge contributor to funding COVID-19 programs, helping the fragile health systems of African and Latin American countries.
With all the turmoil of their past, Spain managed to recover and grow, leading them to where they are today. Starting in 1929, when their economy was wrecked from the Great Depression, to building itself back up after the political split in 1936 during the Spanish Civil War. In 1975, after Franco dies, the first democratic election was held in 1977. A year later, the first constitution was approved. This led to Spain adopting the euro and becoming a leading member in the European Union. Spain used these hardships to grow and build itself back up.
Milicianos, los moros no pasarán, mientras quieren milicianos, los moros no pasarán, no pasarán, no pasarán.